Hey, writers. Welcome to episode 3 of the Working Writer podcast. So, first, I want to say a really huge thank you to the listeners so far. Um, Podcasting is a big adventure, and it is really awesome to have support along the way. I have appreciated the notes that I've gotten, and the comments, and the likes, and the shares. Would really appreciate some reviews. That's kind of like the next thing on my list. Thank you so much for taking time to listen. Even if you don't get all the way through an episode, it just matters to me that you took the time to click on it and check it out. So, really, thank you so much from the bottom of my big redheaded heart. Okay, so today's episode number 3, it's going to have a lot in it. I'm going to try and pick up the pace a little bit and go a little faster. It's a really fun interview with my friend Sara Celi. She's a best-selling romance author, big in the genre. She's really on the rise, and she's one of my favorite follows on Instagram because she's a real person, and it. I started following her when she was just getting going on her building her catalog, and it's just been really cool to watch that build. So I'm excited to share her wisdom with you. The problem that we're going to deal with in this episode is how to make time for writing and how to maintain a steady word count, which happens to be the reason why is the problem for this episode is because that is Sara's wheelhouse. If you check her website out, saraceli.com, she has a newsletter called Between the Stacks, and it's you know how newsletters can sometimes like junk up your email box and not really give you anything useful. Her newsletter is, I open it every single time. It is packed with practical, real, not rock star author stuff that's like, you'll never get here, you need to aspire to this. It's more like, here's today what you need to know about having an author career. Here's today what you need to do in order to build your word count. Her advice is always actionable and practical and realistic. So that's that. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Like I said, the ebook that pairs with this episode handles how to make time for writing and how to maintain a steady word count. There will be a lot more content on that than can fit in this episode. I'm really committed to keeping these right at an hour. So if you want more, go to Amazon, get the ebook. It's on the website. It'll be linked everywhere the podcast is, and Instagram as well. Speaking of Instagram, I posted that the giveaway for this episode would be Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. I read from it in episode 2. It is a classic must-have for writers of all shapes, sizes, flavors, genres, anything. If you write and like words, you need Bird by Bird. It's also pretty applicable to today's topic because Bird by Bird refers directly to how you put word count down, how to put numbers of words down. So the way you win the giveaways in the episodes is to have engaged with the podcast in some way, shape, or form on any of the platforms. If you like to post, subscribed, shared, left a review, whatever, those are the lists that I draw the names from. So I will tell you about the giveaway for each episode at the beginning, before the interview, and then after the interview, right before the episode wraps, I will announce the name of today's winner. All right, I'm actually going to switch the order up a little bit here and read the inspiration for today's episode after the interview because Sara kind of introduces it in our conversation. Sara's titles are hot. Lusting for Luke, Reed's Redemption, Because of Adam, Vote for Love is a box set. She has a very extensive romance novel catalog on her website, saraceli.com. Our conversation was everything that I love, talking shop with another writer. It was warm and maternal. We talk about our babies. We talk about some serious infant issues. I hope you really enjoy it. It's fantastic and so down to earth and real. Really appreciate it. Here we go.
So it's cool to get to like actually talk to you. I've been, seeing you on social media since before you were pregnant. So
Yeah, since last year. Yeah.
it was,
Well, it's nice. Yeah, it's nice to finally connect.
yeah. So why don't we start? So your episode is going to be covering. I want to talk about the romance genre, what it's like to write. You have the most killer, kick-ass work ethic with your word count. of anybody.
Oh, thanks.
I really want to talk about that and what it's like to write, maintain that through real life because you're a new mom. Your baby just turned 1, so um, and
She
you put
did.
books out. You put books out the same year you had baby. Big deal. So start wherever you want. Like, where did you? When did you start writing? I mean, I know a little bit about this, but for the
Sure. I have always been a writer. I was somebody who, when I was a kid, I was a humongous reader, and my parents started me early with that. I used to love going to the library, and always had to have a book. Always had something in my bookcase as far as that I was reading, and then I had something in my book bag, and then I would take stuff on trips. And I think that just made me more of a writer. And so when I got to be about fifth, sixth grade, and I finally could start telling stories, it just kind of came naturally to me and I just enjoyed it. So I've always been somebody who's journaled or written stories, or for a long time, I was a full time journalist, still do that sort of on the side a little bit. And then it just kind of made sense to start writing books. So I wrote a book in college. It is never, ever going to see the light of day. It is a terrible Bridget Jones ripoff.
we all have to have one
But
of those.
yes, yes, we do.
Yeah.
And so I wrote that, and my sorority sisters all read it and stuff, and they enjoyed it. And then I got into TV journalism, and always said in the back of my mind, I'm going to write books. I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to start to do this as I get older. And by the time I reached about 2012, I had been kind of starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And I said, this is the year I'm going to do it. I'm going to just write a book this year, um, as a goal. And yeah, I hear her. She's moving around in the back. Anyway, so I had that goal and managed to do it, managed to get it done. I started writing in March of 2012 and I finished my first novel early July of that year.
Okay, so did
And
you
I've been
already
off ever
have an
since.
idea and like did you already know like kind of what you wanted it to be about and did you have a vision for your career at that point or was it
I
just
didn't.
big?
I didn't. To me, it was just the accomplishment of writing another book,
Mhm.
and being really serious about it, instead of being just kind of messing around with it like I was in college.
Right.
And by 2012, publishing had really changed. Publishing had become a whole new ballgame, with the rise of Kindle, the way that people were reading. They were discovering books in unique and new ways, and that sort of led me to realize that there was an opportunity and a path that I had not considered before. So the first book was published early January of 2013, and for me, it was just the accomplishment of just getting that done.
Mm.
Starting with an idea and then working through the editing process and getting it ready for readers, having it read by multiple people, and so I just thought, well, I've achieved a goal here, and I had absolutely no plan for making it a career. I secretly wanted to do that, but I wasn't. I didn't have a business plan or a focus. I think that's one of the things that I would go back and change if I could talk to myself when I was first starting. I did not plan for what came after the first book.
Yeah.
And so, I saw other writers and other authors that I connected with really, they were off and going. They were um, writing three, four, five, six, seven books that year, and I was struggling to get out the second one, again, with no plan and no real focus on how to make it a career. And at the end of 2013, I decided to pull back a little bit in my TV journalism career. I had gone through some things in 2013. One of them being that I was in the Moore tornado in Moore, Oklahoma, because I was working in
Oh,
Oklahoma City,
wow.
and
You
yeah,
experienced
and
oh
it was
god.
crazy. That was a very crazy day. If you'll remember, that was the tornado where there was a school that was hit,
Yeah.
and students that passed away as a result of being in the hallways when they were trying to shelter from the storm. So I was working as a TV anchor there, went through that period of time, and I said, I've had enough of TV news. I've had enough of kind of pursuing this in the way that I am. And so I thought, well, I'll just pull out of the business completely. I moved back to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati is my hometown area.
Mhm.
The station that I had used to work for here approached me and said, "Well, why don't you work freelance? Why don't you just do some freelance TV news stuff for us, 2 or 3 days a week? And you can continue to write books, and this will keep your hand in and things like that." And so I said, "Okay, that sounds like a good sort of halfway." And I did that halfway from the end of 2013 until the end of 2019. So for 6 years.
What a sweet compromise, though. You kinda
Yeah,
has
yeah, it was great.
yeah.
It was great, and I appreciated that about the station. They understood. I said to them, I may come back and work for you, but you have to understand that I have this other thing going on,
Mhm,
and I'm not going to lie about the fact that I'm writing books. I'm not going to hide it. I want people to understand I'm writing romance books.
mhm.
Is that something that you're okay with? And they looked over my catalog and they said, it's fine. We don't have a problem with it. You're upfront about it.
So you use
And
your name, your professional name in your
yeah,
writing.
I just use my regular name, Sara
Yeah.
Celi. I just use that totally.
Mhm.
And so I started over that period of time. I wrote between 2013 and 2019. I ended up writing a book on my catalog, um, and had a book actually almost ready to go when I had Samantha. So
Early.
um,
She came
yeah,
significantly early.
she did come extremely early. She came 3 months early. So I was actually slated to release because of Adam, like at the end of November of last year, and
Mm,
had just almost put it up for pre-order. Thank God I did not do that. And she was born in November 8th.
wow.
So yeah, so that was so since then, since November of 2019, I have not worked in TV news. I've done some local voiceover work and things like that, but I have not done any full-time journalism. I was actually just talking with my TV agent about that and kind of what we might be doing in 2021, just kind of feeling out that industry.
Mhm.
But while I am sort of figuring all that out, I have decided to work full time as an author. So I've been working full time every day on the books, doing something with the marketing, something with the writing, something with the editing,
Yes.
making it a job. And
That's what's
I will tell you,
remarkable.
it's
I mean,
like they say,
yeah,
it's like they say if you make something a focus, you actually do better at it, right?
yeah.
And so I've seen actually more success this year as an author because I focused on it
That's just
completely.
amazing to me. I mean, you have a very, tactical approach. That's why I, like, thought of you immediately because the whole
Oh,
podcast is to focus on people who are working writers. They're not hobbies are fine, but real
right.
writing takes real work, and it is so much more than just the writing, and you've really emphasized that. Like, I mean, I just kind of see you on I don't know you that well, it's just social media, but I'm like, okay, but just look at the facts. I mean, she volunteers, she had a preemie, you work, and you didn't just release one book this year. I mean, you've had multiple projects
three
going. Yeah,
three came
so I
out this
mean,
year. And
that's yeah,
I held one back. It could have been four, but I've held one back because I'm trying to do something a little different in 2021, and so I want to have some work that's ready to go. So yeah, so that one is so there's a book that's being held specifically for a 2021 release. So
weird.
but I did manage to get three out, so I'm really happy about that.
Right. So tell us
Because of Adam. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say, tell us how, like, but you finish your thought first, 'cause I love your
Yeah,
words.
because of Adam was the book that was going to come out when Samantha was born,
Mm,
and obviously I just could not wrap my head around the finishing touches for that. So
yeah,
we delayed that to January because I just didn't have the time. I mean,
mhm,
she was in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit for 3 months, so
yeah.
we had to, we had to
Your
take a
recovery,
little
like,
bit of a breath. Yeah.
that birth was hard on you, you almost died, So like you
Yeah.
have your own recovery to get through. And now that I know about the tornado too, I'm kind of like, wow, you've juggled some trauma. That's
Yeah, that was a very strange time to be a journalist in Oklahoma City. Everybody who worked in TV news or worked for the Oklahoman, all of us were very it changed everybody's career trajectory.
mm,
So I know several people who that was a springboard for them, and they went on to work in major cities. I mean, much bigger cities. I know somebody who works for Fox News Channel now as a result of that. Somebody who's an anchor in Atlanta. Somebody who's anchoring in Dallas. I know somebody who went off and did a bunch of reporting in Latin America to get away for a while. I mean, so it just was a really that was a really strange sort of moment, because it was probably the biggest tornado to hit the country, I think, in the past 100 years. So
yeah, you can't
yeah.
escape the impact of that. And trauma has this weird way of like when from what I know from my own trauma stuff that I've lived through, um, it's not that I think good has to come from it, but when you make choices in your life, because you've been through something, and then those choices, like you actually are happy with the path that you're on, and it
Hmm.
couldn't have happened if you hadn't have made those choices then. It's like, well, then I can kind of see I'm just grateful for how I dealt with it or how I came out of it. Or, my daughter died in 99 and she changed my life. And um, like, I'm never going to say I'm glad that I went through that because, I can't say I'm glad that I went through something like that. But there's so much good that has come out of experiencing her that I also can't regret it. So,
Hmm.
and I just have mad respect when traumatic decisions shape our choices, and then we make something beautiful from it. Like
Hmm.
sometimes we do have to get away and lick our wounds, but if we can make
Yeah.
something beautiful from it, there's redemption in that. So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
So I didn't know that about you at all.
I
You're
don't
telling me
remember if I
something.
told you that. I know
Mm-mm.
I have hospital experience. I know we've talked about that, but I'm careful with new moms to say
Hmm.
that because I have another friend on Instagram and her daughter has the same name as my baby, and so
Oh gosh.
so I said that, and then I was like, oh, but I'm not going to tell her what happened until she's past postpartum because
Hmm.
you just have to be careful with the new mom psyche. But yeah, Clara had hypoplastic left heart syndrome, and she
Oh
was
my
born
gosh.
healthy and beautiful. But I had been in preterm labor since 32 weeks. Made it to 39. She was born, 7 pounds, 7 ounces, gorgeous, but she had a broken heart. And we took her to Atlanta to have heart surgery. They have a surgical procedure they do at birth, six
Hmm.
months, and then 3 years, and it replumbs the heart so that the half a heart can do the job of the whole heart. And she did great with surgery, but she had some other kind of like little midline defects that
Mm.
never it wasn't a genetic syndrome. They never had an explanation for it, but her body didn't just quite bounce back, and her lungs didn't love going through that kind of surgery. We spent basically 9 weeks in the CICU, and then the night before
Oh
she was supposed to come home, she choked in her sleep. I was
man.
like all set to go home, had the car seat, the whole thing. Um, but some really amazing things happened, like she cut her first tooth at 3 weeks, and I was with her almost the whole time. I had never been through death. I was a young mama, and I had never been through death with anybody until it was my daughter. She was my third
Mm.
child. So I had little babies at home. I was going to have three under three, and I didn't know how I was going to even handle that. And I was in a really traumatic, violent marriage that I had stayed in.
Yeah, I
So
knew about that. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what my book is about. And it's like, oh, I have to make something beautiful of that. Like that's
Yeah.
my passion is like, yeah, life hands you crap sometimes, but that strength that you get, like I would not Clara changed my life. She changed everything about me. And so I can't regret it. Like I'm just so grateful I got to experience her. And it opens up when I talk about infant loss or I talk about anything to do with grief or anything like that. It always opens up a channel with somebody else to talk about their pain. So I
Mhm.
really feel like that's what she gave me is the ability to do that. Yeah.
And, you know, I think writing about it too is very helpful and healthy and good that I think it's great that you've decided to do that, because
Yeah.
that can be very therapeutic.
I have talked
So,
around it for a long time, and even when I started this manuscript, which I've worked on for like 10 years, but really in um, earnest this past year, I fictionalized it as a novel because
mhm,
I was trying to keep privacy for my other kids, but I also was like not ready to like hit it hard. Um,
mhm,
and then I started talking to some publishing consultants, and they were like, no, a publisher's not going to know what to do with your story because they need to sell one thing. They don't know how to
mhm.
sell a novel that's memoir that's, it's two things and they have to go in two directions. And I'm right on the line of between self-publishing and traditional publishing. It's going to come down to distribution, and because my story, it's called The American Burqa because it's so political and because it's about a world that's shaping our current election. I want the wider distribution. um,
Mhm.
but I was consulted to make it mine and put it in my name. So I took a pen name for my last name, but I redid the whole book as my full on memoir, and I can't tell you like that transformed it. I
That's great.
I'm owning it, and there's something
Mhm.
magical in owning my story in this way. I don't know where it's going to go yet, but the universe is opening, and I feel like Claire is guiding that, and there's magic happening. I don't
That's
know if
great.
we'll go on to that, but yeah, yeah. So that I think we were talking about trauma. Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Mhm.
Is yeah,
Yes.
shaping our career choices and our. You do have a whole catalog of books, which I think is a really important point that you're not just.
Yeah, and I mean, I write novels. You know, I'm not at the point where I'm doing nonfiction really at this point. I did do that kind of author guide thing,
Really
mainly because I
helpful
kept
author
getting asked
guide.
questions.
Yeah, I want to make sure we
I got
link
a lot of
to that.
questions from people, and I thought to myself, you know, this is one of the things that I need to be doing is writing out how to get started. And so, and you know, I think the line between traditional and self publishing comes from where you're at, where is your genre, what are you writing, what are you trying to accomplish. A lot of people have moved to self-publishing in the novel world because it is faster, easier, you can connect. You don't have to worry about a gatekeeper in New York or some other place that's trying to tell you that this is what readers want. Um, and there has been a lot of personal success out of that for many people. But I also know that not every genre is that way, and not every section of books are that way. So it just depends really on what type of writing that you're doing.
Hmm. Um, let's talk about. So I want to make sure we link to your publishing guide because I found it. I found
Yeah.
it really actionable. So
Thank you.
we all have a lot of books. There's a lot out there on how to publish and if you should publish and all that. But what I found yours to be was really actionable, really honest, transparent, helpful information. And that's what made it stand out. Like you told us about the editors, the editing process that you go through, your structure that you
Mhm.
helps you churn these books out because you're prolific and you're building.
Not as prolific as some people. I know some people who write a book a month, so don't. I'm
Are
not
you
that
kidding?
person.
Okay, so it's listening to romance. Is that a thing?
Yeah, romance writers tend to. There's a lot of romance people who are very prolific in romance. Also, science fiction, thrillers, and then some of these, you know, kind of different genres like shapeshifters and cozy mystery, things like that. So fiction writers tend to. Some of them have a formula, and they just snap it out as fast as possible.
And their readers love it,
And
right? Because they know what
yes,
they know what
yes.
they're getting from a
Right,
brand.
right.
Okay.
And a lot of them will start a series and they'll do, you know, 5 or 10 books in a group. They all go together. So, you know, it's that's I still haven't cracked the code on some of that, but there are people who are very, very prolific and very good at doing that.
Wow.
But I would recommend to anyone who is going to write a book that if you are getting into the fiction world, you need to understand that you got to have more than one book. So don't even think about shopping around for self-publishing or for traditional or small press or any of that unless you have three or four ready to go,
Mhm.
because that's what they want, that's what a reader wants, and that's how you can build a career too, because there's sell through on all of your books. There's people who are looking for one book from you, and then they turn around and they read everything from you, and you want to have things to offer them.
Yeah.
And that's something that I didn't understand when I first published. I just was like, wow, I'm so proud of myself. I wrote this book, and it's going to come out, and I it's ready to be read. And then people said, well, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
What's the next thing? So
Were
that's
you
that's
ready
one
to think about it
recommendation.
when they did that?
Um, you know, I kind of was and wasn't. I think I kind of treaded water on it, and
Mm,
maybe a little too long too, and just didn't really realize that I needed to have three or four books ready to go. So
damn.
that is my advice. But the good thing about everything is that now nothing has to go out of print. Absolutely nothing has to go out of print.
Mhm.
Only if you choose for it to do that. So, like with me, I've been able to build up a list. I have 16 books out now. So people who come to me now and are new readers can go back and find more and more and more, and they may be interested in this one or that one, or come back to it later. So that's the other part about it that's so great, is that you can build up that career. But
Mhm.
when you think about it, the most successful novelists, if you're thinking about fiction writing, are the ones that have many books. James Patterson, Stephen King, Nora Roberts. These people
Right.
are Danielle Steele, Jackie Collins. These are top level writers in their career, and they have many novels out. They don't have one or five, they have 20, 30, 100.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I took
yeah, that's,
James Patterson's master class, and he was
mhm.
talking about how often he collaborates with other writers, and his name carries it, but junior writers are getting their experience by working with him on those
Yes, and he
types of.
has a whole different field that he's doing. He has a whole different focus. But as far as how he's doing with that, and like there's controversy, of course, about that, but then there's also praise about that because it's effective in a lot of ways. But the one thing that kind of drives everybody is they write. They are on the next project, onto the next project, onto the next project. And even Stephen King talks about that in his memoir on writing. He talks a lot about how, yeah, it's great if you write one novel. That's great. But, if you write one novel and it's 10 years later and you haven't put anything else out, can you really say you're a novelist? Can you really say, I mean,
Yeah.
what have you been doing in the past, in that time? So that's why he's always writing something. Maybe it's a short story, maybe it's a novella, maybe it's a full book. But that's, if you look at his catalog, he just has stuff
Right.
constantly that he's doing. So
Constantly working. So when I
mhm.
see you put your word counts up, you're not even taking a day off, is what it looks like.
Well, sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. It depends on where I'm at in a project.
Okay.
So I am trying to start. I'm trying to get one more book first draft written between now and the end of the year. That was sort of my contract to myself. I had a book. I do have a book that is 15,000 words in, which I'm kind of. It's kind of not working out right now. Not working as great as it could.
Uh-huh.
So I'm debating whether or not I just chuck that and start something else, because I do have 6 weeks to the end of the year,
Easy.
5 6 weeks. So, um, but I have had to hone the word count. You talk to me about that. You always laugh about how I like writing 2,000 words a day, things like that.
Mhm.
So I'm not even doing as much as some other writers that I know. And part of how you do it, one of the biggest things that a lot of people talk about is these word sprints. So you sit down and you say, for the next 15 minutes, I'm writing. For the next 5 minutes, I'm only writing. You turn off the internet, you turn off everything except for perhaps music that you might enjoy, and
Mhm.
you just do it. And you stop thinking about, is the character saying the exact thing I want him to say? Is the setting perfect? Is this the right transition? You don't think about any of that. You just type. You just let it go.
Mhm.
And I recently read a suggestion on how to do that even better, and they suggested that this person is really, really good at this, and they said what they recommended doing, which I'm also finding is effective, is before they start a sprint, before they start a series of sprints, they say, okay, what am I basically trying to do? The character needs to get to the grocery store and they need to meet the hero and then they need to fall down and then the character needs to go back home and be mad because they're embarrassed. Okay. So I know I got to get to those 4 or 5 things. So then you clear everything and you start and you just go and you try to hit those points. And if you kind of know where you're going, you're just typing and typing and typing, and then you increase your word count during the time in which you do the sprint. So you would do a sprint for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then you would stop for 10 minutes, and then you would do a sprint and then stop.
Uh-huh. Do you really stop, or do you make yourself stop?
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
stop. I do stop. If unless I'm like on the middle of a sentence or in the middle of a paragraph, and I know what the next sentence is.
Mhm.
But I you do stop and you take a break and you look at the internet or you look at your email or you get a drink of water or you go take care of something that you need to take care of, like get the laundry out of the laundry room.
Right.
But then when then you only take that break for like 10 minutes and then you go back to it, and you're
Risky.
15 minutes on off, and they do this over a period of the day, and
Mhm.
that's how they get it done.
Wow.
So this person that was kind of teaching this was saying that they are able to get 5 to 6,000 words written a day, which
Mhm.
is a whole lot. I mean,
Yeah.
that's if you think about it, that's 20 pages easily. So
Yeah, I have
um,
1,000 word days, but they're steady and they're rare. So they're a
mhm.
true, like, binge, and I couldn't keep that up every day. That isn't a daily pace
Right,
for me.
right.
So it's like,
Well, and for me, like I check in. I say to myself, okay, I get up at 5 in the morning, 5 to 6 days a week. And I work from 5 to 7 because that's when it's the quietest time.
mhm,
I could get the most done.
yeah.
I usually crank out the majority of the stuff then. Then I'll take a break, do what I need to do. I may come back at 10 a.m. and do some more, come back again at 1 p.m. But at least between 5 and 7, I'm in. I'm working. That is like I get my cup of coffee, I sit down, and I start. And I make that a habit. That's the other part. Is the idea of it being a habit.
Mhm, yeah. Is baby's a good sleeper then? So you can
She is, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
she's 1, so she's past a lot of the newborn stuff.
right.
And that's obviously 5 to 7 doesn't work for everyone.
Mhm,
But that's what works for me right now. And it may not be always 5 to 7. That's the right time to be doing something because it
yeah,
depends on my personal life and stuff. But I do have a chunk of time that's when I'm working.
mm,
So I think that's the other side of it all is that you try to make, this is your job. You have to
right,
treat it like a job.
right.
You need to treat it with an office hour kind of mentality or I'm at my desk and
Mhm.
I'm working.
I think
So,
that's my favorite thing about watching from afar because you are you are working at it like it's a job. You're serious about it. You can tell it's grounding. It's like you can feel the gravity of it. You're serious about this. Like I've had kids. I know how exhausting it is the first year when they're little, but to get up and do something for yourself like that, that means you're serious at it, and then you have the outcome of the finished product, which your stuff is
right.
polished and professional.
Thank you.
You're not just like typing it up and throwing it online. No, you have a
Right,
whole
right.
thing that you go through that makes it a really beautiful quality book.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
it's
Thank
been
you.
I don't know that much about romance, so it's you're real like you're probably spoiling me because I'm like
Uh,
I look at it, I'm like, Are they all this nice? Because
oh
it is
gosh.
really nice. Like
Well, I appreciate
I
that.
just I just
And
want an
I
editor.
had to reform I had to reform the process over the years too. I mean, I had to get to where I had editors that I trusted, that I wanted to work with, and people that I felt like, jived with me. Not everybody who started with me at the beginning is with me now. It's just, it's been a whole process of finding myself each time trying to do the next book better than the last book. So I think you can always grow as a writer. That's what I've always heard from some of the best is that, the things that they write now should not be as, the things 10 years ago or 15 years ago that they were writing should be not the same as
Mhm.
the ones that they're doing now. So, I'm always trying to read, how people do it better. And I'm trying to read authors that I think write better than me, which is a whole lot of them. So I have my favorites and stuff too, but I also try to challenge myself with getting kind of the ones who are successful selling the most in my genre. Hey, how are they telling stories? What kind of stories are they telling? How are they doing their plots and their characters and things like that? So that's the other part of this entire process is always trying to teach yourself, always trying to learn more, always trying to learn from your fellow authors. And
Yeah.
even if you're just doing it from afar, even if, which is what you're doing with this podcast, even if you're just, saying to yourself, hey, I just want to read a couple of snippets of somebody's work and see how they do this.
Mhm.
I think that's important too, because you can always get better. So,
Yeah, I mean, I know that my like production values, for example, are going to improve as I go through this.
hmm
I've kind of capped it at 20 episodes because I don't know how long I want to continue to do it. But it's been an idea for a long time because I get asked all the time, well, how can I be a working writer? How can I be a paid writer? And there are
hmm
almost as many ways to do that as there are writers. So
yes.
I was like, well, let's look at the world. What is it like to do that? And real quick, you figure out, okay, well, that separates the field between the people who play around with it and the people who are serious about making this. And not everybody wants to be transparent about what they're making, but one of the things I've learned about being a writer is that you are always working. The thing that differs is your income. Like I just
hmm
lost a big gig. My gig ended, my big contract ended, and so my income's going to go down. But my work has actually gone up because I always have a project ready, in the wings to take. So um,
Right.
this podcast is going to be a ton of work because not only are podcasts a lot of work, they have a lot of peripheral marketing and graphics and
hmm
everything. All the platforms have writing that they need, but I'm also pairing every episode with its own ebook.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so
That's
I
cool.
want to monetize it because my number one
Yeah.
rule is I don't work for free. And
Right.
podcasters create all this content for free, and I'm not going to. Like the download, the book is going to be show content and then some that you can't get unless you buy it. And it's not going to be expensive. Ebooks aren't expensive, but it's going to be something. It's going to be
hmm
transactional because I think I owe that to my own work ethic of, I'm here. Yes, it's going to be fun and I'm going to learn a ton, but I have bills too. So, um,
Yeah, that's cool. That's a really good idea.
yeah, I
Yeah.
that's why I want to kind of segue into the marketing end of what it takes to be a working writer, and especially in romance genre. Like you get the books, you get the catalog together, and then you had an IG story one day where you talked about, or maybe it was in the publishing guide, you talked about how marketing wasn't a thing for a long time, and then you realized you had to spend some measure of time every day on
Oh,
marketing.
yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah. I mean, I now understand that more. I've learned the hard way on that. Yeah, if you're not doing something on marketing every single day, as a once your book is published or even before your book is published, as you're getting towards those final steps, you're already dead in the water. And it's not just, posting on Facebook or asking people to beg for your book, will you buy my book? Buy my book now. That's not, you don't want to do that. But you
mhm,
do want to bring readers along, and you want to develop multi streams. I mean, and that's something that I've also had to learn the hard way is that, I might have my Facebook ads doing really well one month, but then they don't do so well the next month. And then they do better in one country and not so good in this country. And, and so you have to be diverse. You have to be thinking of new ways to market your books. You need to be asking yourself every week, how am I selling books this week?
mhm.
Um, and you want to connect with readers. You want to be genuine. You don't want to come across as a sleazy salesperson, but you do want to make sure that you're doing the things that you should be doing. Posting on Instagram, posting on Twitter, posting on Facebook. Those are some basics. Getting a newsletter together,
Mhm.
getting getting your backlist advertised on Amazon, just working. And then you also want to be working on that next project because nothing is going to sell your last book or your current book the way your next book will.
Oh, wow.
Again, because each book brings more readers rather to you,
Mhm.
so that's the thing, is like somebody may not have found my book, 2 or 3 years ago, but they found Reed's Redemption just recently, and they maybe decided to start reading all my catalog. So that's the other part, is the next book will bring you new readers, and then the next one, and then the next one after that. So yeah, marketing is a huge section of that. I do a lot of my marketing work in the afternoon.
Mhm,
That's when I check a lot of my ads and see if they've performed. I've had to go through all kinds of webinars and things like that, because I'm not great at writing stuff, but writing ad copy. I'm not great at figuring out sales. It's an ongoing process, but I mean, that's part of it too, is
mhm,
that you have to understand that marketing is the next job that you have. And the thing is, it doesn't matter if you are doing this um, as a self-published author, or if you're doing this as a traditionally published author, or what have you. You need to be able to do marketing no matter who you are. I
that's
mean,
right.
if you think about it, again, these top level writers that we all love would love to emulate,
Mhm,
James Patterson and Stephen King and things like that. They do a lot of their marketing. I mean, they're doing the Zoom calls, they're doing the book club events, they're doing those. Yes, they do have bookstores that come and invite them to be speakers and things like that, but they're also doing a lot of the things on Instagram and Facebook Live and what have you, to
mhm.
try to reach people in different ways. So um,
That's
I I really
fun.
learned that the hard way. I thought, oh, people will find my stuff. It's my stuff's well done. I have had 3 or 4 editors look at my work. I've never put something out just 1 month after I wrote it. I work on this stuff. Why wouldn't anyone read my books? And the truth is, if I don't get out there and talk about it, no
Mhm,
one's going to find it.
right, right. How is that I'm my mind just went blank on the name of it, that romance engine you're in. Um,
Love tropes.
yes, Love Tropes, thank you.
Yeah, it's going really well.
Yeah,
And
really
that's
with
so
it.
Georgia Cates. She's a New York Times bestselling author. Has done several series. Beauty from Pain is one of her biggest books. The Beauty series.
Mhm.
That I think that was just auctioned by Hallmark or Lifetime. But
Good for her.
anyway, so she decided to do a website called Love Tropes, and it's basically a search engine kind of site that helps you to find the kind of book you're looking for, especially for a romance reader. So there's romance readers, and then there are readers who want Regency romance or bully romance, or they want to read about billionaires, or they want to read a taboo story, or a story about a mixed interracial couple, or a story about a boss, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And so this aggregate that she created helps people to find the types of books that they're looking for. So it's pretty cool. She's had some really big success with that. She invited a bunch of us to start it with her, and I was, definitely in for it, because I've gone on Amazon before and tried to find a certain kind of story and haven't been able to find it because
Sure.
of the way Amazon is showing me ads, or they're showing me a certain author or whatever, or their data doesn't really help me. And
Mhm.
so this definitely allows you to, if you're looking for holiday romance, it takes you right to a selection of Christmas stories and holiday romances that you might be interested in. So
Yeah, I was impressed with how specific it could get and really,
yes.
yeah, get in
And
there.
she has, that's been out, that started in, I think it was September. And she since then has gotten a lot of feedback from users and things like that. She's fixed it a lot, changed some of the outward design, and allowed it to be kind of a growing thing. So, excuse me, sorry. It's that time of year where there's a
Yeah,
little bit of dust in the air from all the all the leaves.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so she really worked hard on that. I think it's a great idea,
Mhm.
and she's somebody I really respect as well. She's very smart at marketing, very good at marketing.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a really great example too of how the book isn't enough. You have to have this peripheral stuff happening along with it and
yeah, I mean, and I started a Substack called Between the Stacks, which is a little newsletter,
Mhm.
because again, I was still getting a lot of people asking about publishing and trends and tips and tricks and all kinds of stuff. And I thought, well, I'll start a Substack. Why
Yeah.
not? Everyone's doing a Substack right now, especially a lot of ex journalists. So I built a Substack. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think of things like that and be a little bit more agile. But that's the great thing about being a publisher or a writer right now, or
Mhm.
an author or what have you, is the fact that you can be agile, you can connect, you can find people, and you can find new ways to do things. I mean, the internet has brought so much to us in that way. So, I mean, look at us now. We're doing this,
Right.
this podcast Zoom call thing.
Right. It's great.
So,
And your newsletter today was great, by the way. I love that
oh,
you're
thanks.
hybrid between a pantser and a an
Yeah, I am.
author. And
I write a few notes. I take an outline, kind of see where I'm going. I want to have a little bit of a roadmap, but I don't want to be too rigid. I know somebody who does 400-page outlines before she
wow,
writes.
that's the first draft.
But she does it that specifically because she writes dystopian young adult, heavy, high fantasy fiction. So she's got characters that are otherworldly. She's got all kinds of backstory and sidebar stuff going on, and she also writes in a usually in a trilogy world. So if she starts a new world,
Mhm.
that first outline has got to have all the information for her about different names of places and different all of her stuff is that way. So yeah, her name's Kristen Simmons, and her writing is beautiful, but it's really detailed, made up world kind of stuff with new names and new
Yeah.
features and
World building, that's a whole time thing all by itself. I mean, that must take her a long
Mhm.
time. But
Yeah, so
the
her outlines are
with
really detailed.
the
because because if she doesn't have all those notes, then she forgets, wait, what's the name of the senator from whatever place and what's the name of the such and such object, and
right, and
so
your
yeah.
fans will nail her on it. You can't make those kinds of mistakes in that genre.
Right, you
They'll find
can't, you
you.
can't. They will.
Awesome. So what does
So,
2021 look like? What you got on plan?
well, right now it looks like 2 to 3 books already,
Mhm.
and, hopefully those will all be out before June, and, kind of figuring out what the next half of the year will look like.
Mhm.
I've got all of my editorial schedule set up, so, yeah, so there'll be at
Awesome.
least 2, possibly 4 books out in 2021, maybe 5 if I can get a little extra one done, so
Awesome. So your editors are good at turnaround time then, it sounds like they
they are,
yeah.
they're all different. So I work with Lauren McKellar, and she does developmental and kind of beta read editing.
Mhm.
She's also a fellow author, but started as an editor, and she and I have been together for a long, long time. So I send that to her, and she sends me all kinds of notes back. And then Marion is from Marion Making Manuscripts. She is a really, really high level editor who does a lot of deep developmental dive stuff. I mean, she really kind of gets the nitty gritty. That's the one. That editing is when my brain really hurts.
Uh-huh.
Because her note her notes and things are, and she can sometimes take longer because she is so detailed and does this really thick edit. And then Karen Lawson does kind of a final edit, and then Christine Weary does a final copy edit, take a look at it, okay, it's good, kind of thing. So
Wow.
4 is what works for me. That's not what works for everyone else. Some people write really clean right off the bat, and they can be really focused and they can just churn it out. That's not me. My stuff is pretty messed up initially, usually. So it just, again, the process has to work for you. But I do want to say that everyone needs to invest in an editor. Everyone's starting out, and it doesn't matter if you're trying to aim for a traditional publishing contract or you're going with self-publishing. You have got to have an editor. You have got to have beta readers, because if you don't, you're messed up. I mean, nobody can. Nobody.
Nobody
You're
wants
not
to
William
look at that
Shakespeare,
mess.
and even William Shakespeare had editors. I mean, you need to focus on the product and making sure that it has had other feedback, because I find a lot of times that the stuff that I think I've written isn't what I actually wrote on the page.
Right.
I'll think that yeah, that transition made total sense. They were at the store, and then they went to the party afterwards, and now they're having dinner. And people say, no, 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 you didn't make that clear, and you messed the day up, and you messed the way it up. It sounded weird, it was abrupt. You left this character over here, and I mean, so you do need to make sure that you're you're
Right.
getting somebody else to read your work.
Right. Do you work with a cover designer?
I do. Yeah, I do. So I have now 2 different ones. again, it's just about availability for that person. But I think everybody who is going to self publish, if you are going to do that, you really do need to work with a cover designer.
Mhm.
And the going rate now for that is, $75 to 150 bucks
Mhm.
can get you a really nice cover, and you got to
Right.
have it.
Yeah.
You got to have it. I still see in some of the Facebook groups that I'm in and things like that, the writer groups, I still see starting writers trying to just make their own cover, and it's not a good idea. It's not. I know that Kendall Create and all that exists, but you really want to make sure that you've got a high level graphic that is on trend with the genre you're in and has appeal, and that when it's being read in thumbnail, which is when so many people are buying your book, that's how people could encounter your book in a thumbnail situation, right?
Mhm.
They're on the app, usually on their phone, or they're on their desktop, and they're just like scanning through Amazon and they're just seeing different books, and you want your book cover to stand out. And really, unless you are a professional graphic designer yourself, which most of us are not,
Right.
you probably need to have someone do it. I mean, it's just good business. And, you'll be able to have someone come in with Adobe and other higher level programs and really create something beautiful, and that can set the tone for your books.
Yeah,
So,
exactly, and you can be writing while it's underway. You're freed up.
yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of fun. It's always fun for me when I get to that part of the process because I realize I'm closer to the end, and that, the product is getting to be real, and probably within 5 or 6, weeks it'll be ready to be out.
Mhm.
So, that's fun, but you do absolutely want to look in your genre at what is selling well, what are the top 100 in your group. If you're writing thrillers, what do those kind of books look like? If you're writing heavy women's fiction, what does that look like? And you want to think about how your cover design will fit into that world and how it will sell against what is the popular stuff. I'm not saying the popular stuff is what you absolutely have to do, but you do need to consider it before you make the decision about what your cover is going to look like.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense that you'd wanna be, um, similar to your comps, but stand out enough and yeah.
yeah, and there are things that certain readers expect. I mean, they like okay, like I put out that holiday romance, just like a little quick
Mhm.
holiday, hey, you want to read a quick holiday romance, you can read Christmas in Watch Hill. When I put that out, I looked at all of the holiday covers that were out there. And yeah, readers want Christmas looking red, white, blue, not red, white, blue, I'm sorry, red, green, white, gold, those colors. They want snow, they want some kind of scripty font, usually a couple. You want to make sure you have those elements because the reader is trying to figure out, they're going to look at your cover and then just like go to the next one and then the next
Right,
one and then the next. They have millions of options.
right.
So, yeah,
They may
that's
not
the
even
other
look at
side of
your
it.
sales thing, like, they might not
Right.
even see that.
And your book is being judged. It's being judged before you even have it downloaded. It could be the very best book ever written, but if it's hiding behind a cover that doesn't sell it and doesn't work, all
Really good
bets are off
point.
at that point.
That is a very good point. Well, I cannot wait to see what happens. I have my favorites on IG, and you're one of them.
Uh,
I just,
Thank you.
I like, I'm trying really hard to keep my account, kind of a half of my topic, but also the writing world. Because I love writers and I love the tribe, and we have a lot that's in common and a lot that's different, and we make each other stronger together. So I really appreciate you being on the show. This
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking me. I hope this works out great for you. I mean,
Yeah, that's where we're at.
yeah.
Well, solidarity. Thank you so much, and I don't know, lots of blessings and love.
Oh, goodness. Wasn't that great? I had so much fun talking to Sarah, and as an Enneagram 4, I love it when things go deep. So when we got onto serious subject matter, um, that's all good. I love it. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this project. So, such a fun surprise when you think you know how a conversation is going to go, and then it twists into something that you had no idea was going to come up, but aren't you glad it did? So great. some people do really like to write that way as well. They call it pantsing because they are flying by the seat of their pants. They don't know what's going to happen as they start writing. Personally, I'm kind of a hybrid. I like to have a little bit of a plan. Sarah and I talked about that. If you want to comment and let me know what your preference is, I will be happy to dive into those topics more specifically. I'm putting together a list of subject matter for the 20 episodes for the second season, and going deeper into any of these topics that we're kind of touching high level in the first season is kind of up my alley. So let me know. Let me hear from you. Okie doke, cherry on top. I'm going to end this episode with the inspiration that led to it. Sarah and I talked about word count, we talked about discipline, and we talked about catalog, how to have multiple books out. You have to think bigger than a single book. And she mentioned a great book on the subject, Stephen King's On Writing. I pretty much need to just give away every book I think writers must have. This is definitely a must have. The first half of it is memoir on Stephen King's career, and the second half is applicable wisdom for writers in any stage of their career. He calls reading the great commandment of writing, so that's what he's going to refer to here in the next line. I'm going to read a tiny little snippet of it. There's the cover. YouTube people. This podcast is on video on YouTube and audio everywhere you listen to podcasts. If read a lot, write a lot is the great commandment, and I assure you that it is, how much writing constitutes a lot? That varies, of course, from writer to writer. One of my favorite stories on the subject, probably more myth than truth, concerns James Joyce. According to the story, a friend came to visit him one day and found the great man sprawled across his writing desk in a posture of utter despair. "James, what's wrong?" the friend asked. "Is it the work?" Joyce indicated assent without even raising his head to look at the friend. "Of course it was the work. Isn't it always?" "How many words did you get today?" the friend pursued. Joyce, still in despair, still sprawled face down on his desk. 7. 7? But James, that's good, at least for you." "Yes," Joyce said, finally looking up. "I suppose it is. But I don't know what order they go in." At the other end of the spectrum, there are writers like Anthony Trollope. He wrote humongous novels. Can You Forgive Her is a fair enough example. For modern audiences, it might be retitled Can You Possibly Finish It? And he pumped them out with amazing regularity. His day job was as a clerk in the British Postal Department. The red public mailboxes all over Britain were Anthony Trollope's invention. He wrote for 2.5 hours every morning before leaving for work. This schedule was ironclad. If he was in mid-sentence when the 2.5 hours expired, he left that sentence unfinished until the next morning. And if he happened to finish one of his 600-page heavyweights with 15 minutes of session remaining, he wrote the end, set the manuscript aside, and began work on the next book. I remember the first time I heard that advice. I was driving in the car listening to the audio version. I think it was the year that I had 4 kids in 4 schools plus a full-time job. And I was trying to write. That was a grueling couple of years, but I did manage a word count throughout, and my writing career didn't experience any major slowdowns. I mean, honestly, writing is a long game, and my trajectory has been slow. And I think it's very commensurate with just about every other writer I know, except for the few lucky ones that we hear that get these explosive opportunities and a lot of luck. Most of us are trudging through the snow, through a hard process of learning craft and learning how to manage our time and balance our families and still make things happen. And I remember holding onto the steering wheel. It was blue because I had my Highlander back then. And I heard that story of Anthony Trollope and I started crying because damn it, he did it, 2.5 hours in the morning plus his full-time job wasn't particularly soul edifying. I think probably that kind of job sounds like it has a lot of people watching and observation, and it probably informed him a lot, but he fed his soul through his writing by having that kind of commitment. And it never dawned on me you could set it down and start the next one just because your writing sprint wasn't over yet. He was doing writing sprints before people called them writing sprints, and he was finding a way to do it regardless. It's like art finds a way to survive. It finds a way through the darkness no matter what else is happening. And as a working writer, that has fed me. That line of that book, there's a lot of wisdom in On Writing, that particular one helps me remember that as this little average Jane over here who's just trying so hard and working hard all the time, I stand a chance. As long as I'm writing and creating something that I can edit and I'm doing something, I'm like producing work, we stand a chance. And working writers, like that's my whole passion. Like I hope you can feel that we're like drumming right here on the reason why I keep going. Life doesn't stop and life shouldn't stop because your life is your life. You just want to find a way to make a living with your words. You don't want to stop living. So that's exactly like, that's the marrow, man, right there. Right there. You have to have discipline. You have to sit your ass in the chair and write. Oliver Stone said that. It's writing equals ass in chair. It's that simple. And also not. Poor James Joyce, only 7 words for the day. I mean, that's agony, right? Agony. And maybe he's overthinking it. And maybe if you're only getting less than 10 words a day out, maybe you're overthinking it, unless it's a very particular part of your story. In general, drum that, pound it out, pound that shitty first draft out, and then go back and revise. And those revisions don't count as your word count for the day. Your shitty first draft counts as your word count for the day. So the Anthony Trollope model is definitely what I've tried to follow. It's the kind of dedication that I see Sara showing up for every day. If you follow her on Instagram, you will see her post her word count. 5 days out of 7, she posts some kind of update. And just like we said, that is with having a new baby. That is with having other interests in her life and having other things that she does. She's a hardcore, dedicated volunteer as well, especially during the holiday season and COVID. I was like, damn, girl, how's this woman doing it? Well, she's doing it exactly the same way Anthony Trollope did it. You set a goal, you're serious about it, you protect it, and you just do it. You just, like Oliver Stone said, put your ass in the chair and do it. I'm going to go a lot more in depth than this in the book because clearly I have words on this subject. I hope you'll check it out on Amazon. I'm going to go grab the winner for today's giveaway. Oh my goodness. The winner of today's giveaway is Melissa Frey, author of The Secret of the Codex. It's possible she already knows about this wonderful gem, but I'm going to send it on anyway. Maybe she'll gift it. Love you, girl. Congratulations. Alrighty then, that's a wrap on episode 3. As I've said before, the ebook is on Amazon. I hope you'll share this. Please send me a review. Listeners are awesome. This podcast is fun, and keep writing. See, I didn't say right on.